Hi, everybody. This is Vicky Dean. I work at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. My position here on campus is as an Assistant Director of Residential Education, working with our focused interest communities and our faculty fellow programming. And in GLACUHO, I am the current chair of the Student Learning Committee. This is my second year chairing the committee, and I love it. It ties in very much with what I do. So that's a little bit about me.
And my name is Meaney. I am a resident director, first year advisor at Miami University, and I am the current chair of the Professional Foundations Committee.
So we wanted to give you a little bit of background about how this webinar came to be. This is the second year that we've done this webinar, and it all resulted from a conversation in the boardroom 2 years ago about what are the things that we expect of our committee members and the things that we ask of them and how the rhythm of the year goes and the projects that we ask people to do. And we realized that we as board members have these implicit expectations of our committee members, but that we weren't necessarily communicating them across the board in a more general, this is what it means to be a committee member kind of way. When you get to Camp Tecumseh, you'll get some more specifics about what your committee does, but we wanted to kind of have a uniform approach to talking about what it means to be on a committee in the GLACUHO region. So we came up with this. We tried to frame it as a top 10 list to keep it, I don't know, fun and energetic, hopefully. So we'll work through our top 10, and then hopefully if you have any questions, you'll be able to type them into the chat bar that Eric mentioned earlier. So we're going to move on.
All right, so starting at number 10, we want to kind of go really big picture first, and that's about knowing the outcomes. So what do we want you to get out of this experience and do while you are serving as a committee member? So first, articulating and understanding how your committee adds value to your own personal and professional development. So, looking at this as truly an opportunity to, kind of put another tick on your resume or another way to advance yourself professionally. Next, demonstrating engagement with the association and membership through your work on the committee. So, of course, we want you to actually do things as part of the committee, not just come to Camp Tecumseh, you're excited, and then, okay, that's all I'll be here for you. We actually would like you to do something on projects and tasks. And through that, you're going to then educate the membership through your committee work. So you are really now all educators. You're going to basically learn while educating others, taking your own experiences, knowing that none of us really are experts, but we're gonna take one piece of maybe a passion. We're gonna advance our knowledge forward and then share that knowledge with others. And then integrating your experience gained from your committee work to increase your commitment to the GLACUHO Association. So learning, leading, and serving. So hopefully we can increase your love of GLACUHO just the way that Vicki and I love it as well. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So knowing your mediums. This is another big picture. This is kind of the how you're going to do those projects and tasks, which can be kind of overwhelming if you've never done this committee stuff before. So these are the ways that we educate the membership. So through Trends. Trends is is the GLACUHO magazine. It comes out once a quarter. And we will have those deadlines at Camp Tecumseh. The communication committee will decide what those deadlines will be, and you'll know them for the whole year. You can put them on your calendar right away. Next, we have committee web pages. We actually are going through some pretty big changes with our web page, which is exciting. And so hopefully that's going to be a little bit more integrated with what we can do with our committees, that we can change and update the information on the web page a little bit easier. Next is webinars, what we're doing right now. Once you talk with your chair, you'll see that the webinar is a pretty easy thing to set up. Pretty much just set it right from your office, just like Vicki and I are doing now. But that's another great way to educate the membership. Social media is something that over the past couple of years has really, I think, GLACUHO has come into its own with the social media. So we have Facebook pages, we have Twitter accounts. Even some different committees have their own specific Twitter account. I think Health and Wellness has a specific account with that. So that's another possibility. And then, of course, things at the conference. So conference initiatives, things like the Conservation Challenge or the, the 5K, and then conference programs. So putting together a proposal and giving a presentation. And part of that could be roundtables. There really are, thinking about kind of these tangible outcomes that this is the way that you're going to do it. And then there's also parts of the committee experience that there's a lot of tradition versus blank slate. So I think many of our committees, you can go in and kind of have, there's nothing required of your committee. If you are on the programming, that's probably not you. You need to still select all the programs. But there are some committees that it really is a blank slate every year. You can kind of choose your own adventure versus some of the traditional things that those committees do. And I mean, a lot of people, I think, come into this thinking, I have nothing to contribute, I have no ideas, but there are ideas all around. Think of a passion topic you have, something that you are just interested in. That could be a way to research, and then maybe you write a trends article about it, or you do a webinar. There really are things all around. Maybe there's something, big renovations happening on campus, and your community's handling it a little bit differently than other communities. That's something that you could write about. So really the sky's the limit in terms of what you can use as the content for the medium that you're going to use.
Okay, number 8, not in David Letterman's voice, is know your responsibilities. That's part of what you'll learn at Camp T. That's our time face-to-face to figure out what the committee is going to prioritize on if you haven't done so already over email with your committee chairs and members. But really figure out what are the responsibilities that you're going to be contributing to your specific committee. This acronym is something I learned back in graduate school. It's do what you say you will do. So we'll spend time at Camp T just divvying up tasks and deciding responsibilities. This is a great opportunity to establish professional credibility with people beyond your campus and your university and your department. So you want to make sure to follow up. We know that our work responsibility on campus comes first, but you are taking on that next step and volunteering to work with others across the region. So make sure that you are establishing good credibility as you do that. If you don't know how to proceed, speak up. All of the committee chairs have been committee members before, whether in GLACUHO or in other regions. We know what it's like to go, I know I said I was going to do that, but I'm not exactly sure now that I'm sitting down to do it what that means. So speak up, ask questions, figure out what are the pieces I'm missing and what do I need to move forward, and then ask those questions. You can also ask bigger picture questions. How does the budget work? Is there money we can get to do this? What does the organization chart look like? What resources are already available? The GLACUHO website will answer some of those questions if you go surfing around there. And if you're still not sure, talk to your co-chair or your chair. Talk to other people on your committee. Maybe you are in a subcommittee and you're working on something and you don't remember. Your colleague may remember what it was or have taken different notes than you have. So make sure that you are kind of following up on some of those responsibilities that you commit to.
Okay, so number 7, set personal goals. Kind of that do what you say you will do. This is part of that goal setting. So thinking about what are your professional goals? How will the committee work to enhance your professional growth? This can be a lot with the projects that you're choosing, the tasks that you are volunteering to do. And then even bigger picture, how is the committee contributing to the field? Something I took on a few years ago was looking at how our international students from China, how that was impacting our housing and the university as a whole. And that's kind of, I don't know, it's been this launching point for a couple of years now. And that all came through me focusing on that as a trends article through a GLACUHO committee. So thinking about, is what I'm researching a need in the field? And then, what do you want to learn while working on your projects? This is important, to set out, do I just want some more information? Do I want to make connections? What is it that I want to do with, with this set idea and goal that you're moving towards?
All right, number 6 is communicate, communicate, communicate. We are a long-distance organization. We're spread across several states surrounding the Great Lakes. And that can be challenging. You're not going to run into each other every week. You may be communicating other ways, and you should be communicating other ways. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Be willing to ask those questions. You can tell that I have educator in my soul. Be willing to ask the questions. Get to know your fellow committee members and your chair. Some of your meaningful relationships that may last years and years and years can start from your first year on a committee. It just depends on how much effort and you put into getting to know each other. And that goes along with developing the relationships. Your GLACUHO committee chairs, we submit monthly reports, quarterly reports, end-of-term reports. On our work, we submit a lot of reports, essentially. And we want to recognize the work that you're doing, so help us do that. A lot of times the committee chairs will post in our reports upwards of, Marcy worked on this or Sally worked on that, and so we can name you in our report, so you're getting that recognition for the efforts that you're putting in. Also know that not only are we as chairs submitting our reports up to the leadership and the tri-presidents, but we'll also establish communication methods with you as the committee members. So it may take a different form. Some committee chairs do one-on-ones occasionally throughout the year. Some committee chairs do a monthly report submission form as well. And some committee chairs hold monthly meetings. That's just a few of the different mechanisms that the committee chairs will utilize for you to communicate the progress that you've made on your projects. If you're in doubt or you haven't heard from a committee chair, respond, ask questions, send an email out. That's absolutely fine. We are expected as committee chairs to utilize our GLACUHO email address, check it at least every couple days, even though it's, it's not our primary email, so we need to make sure that we tap into that. But we will be checking it, and you should hear from your committee members, committee chairs.
All right, so seeing the big picture. It is important to balance the personal goals and initiatives with that of the larger group. So part of your time during Camp T will be to set out learning outcomes as a group. So what do the committee chairs have an idea of what they would like to see, but we like to have input from the group on, well, what do you want to get out of this as well? And so when all of those come into line, do your personal goals match up with that of the larger group? I had to, again, thinking about that, my own initiatives, how did that fit into the committee I was on, which was student learning? And it made sense. But it's important to make sure that what you want to learn about, what you're excited about, fits into the overarching goals of your committee. And this second bullet point is kind of the most important part of all this, is that there is no knowledge, there is no growth of organization without the committee members. All of the work happens through what we do together behind the scenes for the organization. And so you're a key integral part. There is no way that the committee chairs can just do this on their own. We pretty much just manage all of the different projects, but the real work is coming from the committee members. So I wanted to underscore and highlight and kind of put stars around that second bullet point, that it's really important that all of the work is in your hands. And of course that comes through with completing your commitment. Now, we all understand that things change, life happens, and that this is a volunteer organization, but it is so important that just what Vicky talked about with communication, you just need to keep us in the loop on what's happening, and that if it looks like you can't complete your commitment, that we need to know so we can, put your tasks with other people, or just to change the project. So we do hope that you can commit to the full year. That is the goal. To see it through to the next conference.
And I would add on to what Sarah just said about the work of the entire organization is in the hands of committee members. We know that committee members join the GLACUHO committees so that they can learn, but please know that like Sarah said, your committee chairs are facilitators of the good work. So sometimes we have a couple more years of experience or a little breadth of experience at different places. But if you want to come into the organization to learn something, be prepared to do the research. Be prepared to write the article based on the research that you find or the project that you create. So we're happy to help facilitate that, be good leaders, but know that the learning that's going to happen is on you in order to do the learning and to do the research and the reading and that type of thing. Okay, network. That's also one of the reasons a lot of people get involved in GLACUHO. There are a lot of great ways to connect with people. The first and the primary circle, if you will, is the people that you're working with on your specific subcommittees or projects. You're probably going to talk to those people the most. So make sure that you're having regular email communication or phone calls, or don't hesitate to pick up the phone if you have a question. But there are also not only opportunities within your subcommittees and your GLACUHO committees, there are also opportunities to collaborate beyond your committee. Every year at Camp T, we take a little bit of time as a board after we've met for a couple hours to sit down and talk about, here's what my committee is thinking about doing. Where are the opportunities to collaborate? And we will spend time specifically at Camp T with the opportunity for people to go around from one committee to another and find out where we can match up some of our initiatives. So you might be able to work with somebody from another committee. You may find that working on a collaboration with another committee yields that you have a lot of interest in that committee. So that might end up having you transfer to a different committee next year. We had several people do that this year. You may also collaborate with other colleagues within the GLACUHO region. I've had webinars hosted in the past that some person took on as a responsibility for the GLACUHO committee, and they brought in another colleague to help with that or tapped into for resources or connections. And then sometimes you even connect beyond the GLACUHO region. We had a webinar several years ago that came from somebody who is an expert in the field and happened to be in Pennsylvania and was happy to do a webinar for us. So it's okay to think big and look for those opportunities wherever they may lie. Also keep in mind you may be working with a future colleague or supervisor. This may be an opportunity for you to represent yourself well and to look for who you would want to work with in the future.
All right, managing your time. This is a big one. Part of kind of completing your full commitment. So GLACUHO is a 365-day-a-year organization, and so that means that it doesn't just happen during the conference. And again, the committees are the ones who drive this 365 idea. Basically, we have kind of a slump time in between November and Camp Tecumseh in February. And so this is the time of year that, we're resetting, but we also want to continue GLACUHO going. And, that's how we do things with, trends still happening, which we do have some trends submissions that we're still looking for. That is, the deadline is on the 17th, so this Friday. So if you're interested in making GLACUHO 365 and want to write an article or something small for trends, totally fine. That just a plug for our Trends magazine. But that's how we remain a 365-day organization. So plan to invest some time working on your committee's initiatives. You're going to kind of get your task list or your assignments in February when we meet at Camp Tecumseh. But then, you're going to need to set some time. Okay, when is the timeline for my project? How am I going to get together with these other people I'm working with? When is it due? And sometimes the due date may be, October of the next year, which is okay. But just making sure that it's not so far away that you forget about it and you're not invested anymore with the committee. Knowing your busy times and plan accordingly. So not all of us manage halls, but most of us do. And knowing that maybe having a huge project due around opening or closing may not be a great idea. And so planning around those busy times of year accordingly. I know where a lot of us are coming into recruitment. That could also possibly be a busy time for you. So just thinking about what does your full year look like and kind of have those due dates. I guess also with that, knowing that if you're maybe a grad student or thinking about job searching and you may leave the region, that's another thing to think about. So do I need to accomplish my task before I leave in the summer? Or I'm planning on looking in September of next year. So you can pretty much set your own due dates with a lot of your initiatives, a lot of your projects. So thinking about that full year will help you do that. So when is GLACUHO's busiest time? Pretty much right now, coming into Camp Tecumseh, and then also in October and November then for the conference prep. Those are our busy times of year. It's kind of when, GLACUHO's back in the forefront of my mind. But again, we want GLACUHO to be kind of always there, not just in February and November. So finally, you really need to commit to a reasonable amount of work. And volunteering for something, you really need to see it through, or letting us know that we need to ask someone else to volunteer for that. So it's important that, if you are going to do a book club, that you just need to make sure, okay, this is going to be my only project, this is where I'm going to fit it in, and really know what your schedule is going to look like. If you don't do planners, you might still want to bring a calendar or something just to help you map out what your year looks like so you can really commit to that reasonable amount of work.
All right. Sarah mentioned this earlier, but we're going to reiterate it. Be of service. The volunteering work that you do in GLACUHO is to be of service to the members of the entire organization. So in that spirit, analyzing what do the members of GLACUHO need. I think that it's worthy to note that we have graduate students, entry-level, mid-level, and senior-level folks in the region who are paying attention to what GLACUHO does and are looking for resources from the organization. I also think that plays back into the slide Sarah was just talking about this taking on a reasonable amount of work. Pay attention to the scope of the work. If you're a graduate student and you are proposing that, like, for example, my committee is the Student Learning Committee, and so if somebody is a graduate student on the Student Learning Committee and they're proposing that we write a monograph about living learning communities, the scope of that may not necessarily, though it may be needed, it may not be the scope of work that we are able to accomplish this year with the members that we have. If it's something that you're passionate about, it may be able to, slide up the scale and go further up the ladder and become something bigger than that, but know the scope of who you're reaching out to as well as your abilities. Utilize your knowledge and skills. Those of you who are in graduate school, let me just tell you, you've written more papers than I have in the last year or two. So make sure that if that's where your skill set lies, then think about writing a trends article. If you know that writing is something you do just because you need to and your bread and butter is in presenting, then utilize those skills. However, don't hesitate to learn more skills. I would not know how to run a webinar if it weren't for GLACUHO. I've done it several times now and I'm starting to feel comfortable. Still get glitches, but I still am learning. And it's something I never would have done if I hadn't gotten involved. So don't hesitate to try something new and then prepare for it as you go along. And as I mentioned earlier, do the research to become the expert. It's okay to delve into a new topic. It's absolutely wonderful. You may be wondering about something and how its impact on housing is occurring, and that's okay. Do some preliminary research. Be the first person to write about it. Tap into other colleagues and do a trends article asking for opinions from several key administrators. That's great. And that goes into tapping into your colleagues' interests and passions. So you may be having really interesting conversations in your grad classes or with your colleagues about trends that you're seeing in your daily work. Utilize that. Make that into something a little bit more concrete, and you can make it a trends article or a presentation at the conference or a webinar. And then finally, demonstrate respect. I think that's one of those golden rule type things, but we spelled it out a little bit more. Demonstrate respect for the topic that you are working on or the project that you're working on, and respect for the organization. That's really kind of what we're getting at with trying to spell out some of the communication pieces and then knowing where you fit in the organization. It is self-explanatory, but that respect piece also goes for your colleagues, your home institution. GLACUHO understands that we all have jobs, and we need to do those. Those are what pay us, and that anything that we do for GLACUHO is in addition to, on top of, and for the benefit of the profession. So make sure that you're respecting the time and energy and investment that your campus is putting into you as well. Also be respectful of your fellow committee members. Like I said earlier, this can be one of the better relationships and connections that you make. It all depends on how you invest in those people. And then being respectful of the partners beyond the committee. I think sometimes, and beyond GLACUHO, some of the projects that we do may have a wider scope. We may do something here in GLACUHO that another region thinks is fantastic and ends up mirroring, or vice versa. So know that our scope can even go beyond that, and we want to be very respectful of how we present ourselves to each other as well as beyond. So that was your final number one. The key takeaways for the presentation are have fun. I think we spell it out now so that we don't have to spend as much time doing it later on. Camp T is great. I hope that you've gotten the email from the tri-president saying to RSVP, and I really hope you are able to go. If not, let your chair know as soon as possible. But you'll have a blast. It's a really quick, intense, fun experience. If you're not familiar with Camp T, Camp Tecumseh, we like to call it Camp T. It is a YMCA camp in rural Indiana, and it may not be your your bag of donuts or whatever you're interested in, but I guarantee if you're open to it, you'll have a good time there. Don't hesitate to commit to the good work that we're doing. Know and understand yourself, and then make a commitment, and then follow it through, and you'll definitely see the benefits of that. Does anybody have any questions? I believe that Sarah has an ability to see the questions, so we can answer any for the group. And as I mentioned several times, we like questions. You can ask them.
I also like that really creepy picture of me creeping out behind the banner.
Yeah, those are some pictures from Camp Tecumseh. That's our GLACUHO sign on the stage in one of the main halls at the camp, and that's me peeking out of the right. And we wanted to make sure Sarah was in there too, so I cropped her out of a photo and put her in this one. So and then the other picture is some bunks that we stay in when we're at Camp Tecumseh.
Yep. Here we go.
Yay.
So, okay, we have a question. So, will you be sharing this slideshow with webinar participants? I'd like this as a guideline to stay focused for the year. That I don't think would be a problem. We can have Eric probably send the slideshow to everyone that attended today, I'm thinking. Also, this is going to be, so our voices are recorded, as is the whole visual presentation, and so you'll be able to look at this on the archive. And I have a feeling that Eric will probably have a link to send out about that as well, or at least we'll send it to us, and then we can send it out to our committee members. Does that sound right, Vicki?
Yeah, on the back end, I know you can see the names of people who have signed up for the webinar and were here today. I just can't recall off the top of my head when I snooped around in the software if it gives your email address as well, but I'm sure we can find it and get it out to you. Absolutely.
Well, what I'm seeing from Eric now is that he will definitely post the slide and the whole presentation on the glacuho.org/webinars is how you'll be able to reach this presentation in the future.
Wonderful. Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can go and look at the one that we did last year. It looks very similar. It's also on the archives already.
Yes, it does.
Also, that makes a good point. If you know people who aren't here today, make sure to refer them to that, because they can also see this and kind of play it in their office when they're working on something. Get them prepared for Camp T.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and conclude this. Thank you for joining us today. Eric, do you have any housekeeping notes?
Nope, that's all. I'll just end the webinar as soon as we're done. So thanks everybody for attending. We look forward to seeing you at Camp T in a couple weeks.